All right, so this is part two. This is where, this is where everything gets fun. Always come early, always stay late, with Nora Fry and Peter Miles. So now we kind of just open the whole thing up. If anyone that's participating in the live wants to interrupt, you're free to do so. Just do so with a question, and it can be to Nora, it can be to Peter, it can be to myself, or it can be just in general. Nora, do you have any other questions or thoughts, for Peter or myself?
Well, first,
Um,
did I answer your question enough that it made sense to you
yeah,
when
I
you
got
asked
some
me?
things. Yeah, I got some things written down. Some gold nuggets. So yes.
Well, I think some of it when if I try to cast my mind back to when I was your age versus the way I articulate things today, I was probably also a bit fearful of saying what I believed because it was unproven. If you understand what I'm saying, I
Mhm.
mean, it's like I could say to somebody that I was having a bit of a conflict with when I was in my 20s, well, if you treat people like that, then expect to be receive it back at you, and that would be the reap what you sow. But I wouldn't be so able to be so convincing to to change their mind then because I wasn't 100% convinced because I was young. I hadn't applied what I thought I knew back then, and I hadn't learned enough to be confident and competent. The opposite of love is fearful, right? And or the opposite of fearful is fearless, and that is the major component of love is fearless, unlimited. You know, not being feeling scared or anxious in the face of adversity or even just in the face of opportunity. You're going to get hired, go for a job interview, and you're nervous and anxious. Why? Right? You feel those things when you're younger because you think it's natural, and it is kind of, but it's only natural until it's not, and it becomes you become fearless, not stupid. You don't jump out of a plane without a parachute, right? But
Right.
you can, I was scared of heights. So I put some of the reason I wanted to fly was A, because I did it once and it seemed like I was as free as a bird and I thought I was seeing the world through God's eyes. And I fell in love with that. But I was scared, stupid to get in a plane and go fly, especially on my own. And so, I tell my sons and everybody that is willing to listen these days, whatever you do, put your heart and soul into it. Sounds like a simple thing to say, but really think about that. Put your heart into it. Well, you don't want to break your heart, right? But by the same token, if you don't open your mind to think of every possibility about tomorrow that could be, or when you're applying to yourself to something that's important to you, you can only do that if you get your mind out the way, because your mind will be telling you you're wasting your time. It's what are you doing this for? You could go out and have a party, go to a party instead, or you could make more money, or whatever temptation is put in your path. And it's just distraction. And it's a really hard thing when you're younger, when you don't know. But all I can say to you is double down on what you know to be your faith values, your heart and soul, and not reject anything. You got to learn to overcome a lot of things, and you have to negotiate with a lot of things, or mediate, negotiate. But you don't have to compromise. You don't have to compromise your values. There's a time when there's no benefit in arguing about. If it gets into, you're going to argue your values, your truth to somebody that's kind of not interested. They have an opinion, they don't have a perspective, right? So I always think, and again, these are things I guess you could say, I wish I knew back then what the difference was between perspective and opinion, because I only learned as I became a leader, and it wasn't because I wanted to be a leader. It was because I was pushed to be a leader, that there's a fundamental difference between having a difference of opinions and a difference of perspectives, right? Perspective just means you see more 360 of in the rear view mirror, which is how you learn from mistakes that you may have made. Because if you don't learn from a mistake or something that went wrong or turned out bad, then you're going to make it again, right? Perspective is being able to see around you as you go forward in life, dealing with things, when it's time to learn a lesson and when it's time to follow your heart, right? It's the same, but it's different. An opinion is just, you're rooted to an argument. And if it's unscientific, then you're wrong. You're never going to be right. Right? So it's like two accountants arguing over numbers. It's not worth arguing over, because there is a right and wrong answer. So if you're arguing, you shouldn't be. You should be finding the solution. But when you're arguing about a way of thinking, you know, it's like, you know, are there more than two genders, right? To be somewhat controversial, no. Now, can I give a perspective on why that is true? Yes, and not only a scientific one, an emotional one. So if I'm going to have a debate over how many genders there are, as an example, I'm using hopefully an extreme but simple one, and somebody's going to argue through an opinion because they don't have a perspective, they only have an opinion.
What's the opinion rooted in?
Well, the opinion root is just, you know, it's linear. It's 2 + 2 = 4, right? But outside of the scientific world, which I would say is unlimited, and to give some idea of that, it would be quantum physics today and artificial intelligence, depending on how you program it. So that's the difference. Is through science you can probably prove about 5% of what happens on our planet and in the universe, and probably in the universe not even 1% can we prove scientifically, right? The rest is a matter of perspective. If you think in an unlimited way, then you have unlimited choices. If you feel unlimited, you have unlimited feeling of love, and you could have an unlimited feeling of hate, because hate is in a box. Hate is its own container. The only thing that breaks that container is love, right? So it's like the negative, the pessimistic person versus the optimistic person, right? So what is pessimism and optimism? Is it a fact? Is it an opinion, or is it perspective? Right? So
right.
I would argue that pessimism is real if you have a very limited way of thinking. You can't think beyond negative. If you're an optimist, you can see both. You can see the problem and you can see the solution. And you can't always see the solution, but you just know that there is one. Because no matter what you and I might talk about and say, well, I don't know how to deal with this and I don't know how to deal with that, I would say, well, is what you're trying to deal with in your mind impossible? And you might say yes. And then I'd say, well, you're probably a bit of a pessimist, because it's not even impossible to put man on Mars today, right? So what on earth is impossible? It may not have a high probability, but there's very little you could tell me is impossible. Is it impossible for you to be a billionaire? No. Is it impossible for you to be a faith healer? No. Is it impossible for you to be a commercial pilot? No. I mean, some people would tell you all those things. You can't do that. You can't do that. Well, it's not true. So I didn't understand back then what the truth was. I just felt that when I was running up against walls or problems, or somebody was telling me I wasn't working hard enough or not showing up on time, if I believed what they were saying to be true of me, then I would change it. If it meant doing better, if that makes sense. If I didn't think it would, or I thought they were being demonstrative and unreasonable and to the extreme, then I would either choose to leave or do something else, or do my work in a different place where I could do it productively and better. So these things I didn't know back then, I just felt it. And my guess here in your background is you feel it too, right? So then the question is, how fast do you want to master it so that you can have more of what your heart longs for, not what
Do you think, Peter, do you think that people's hearts long for different things? Are different people, do you think it's different for people's hearts, or do you think that, like, it's interesting, Dave Libby, I asked him years ago, I said, what do you think every woman wants from her husband or from a man? And he didn't even pause, and he said, she wants to be awakened. And it's like, wow. And does every man want that from a woman? I think, like, awakening is something, it's what small children do to us. They awaken us. They see a blue car, they see a toad, they see something that we don't even see, we don't even like notice, and they see something, and they're awakened by something, and they can awaken something within us. And so, do you think that the heart longs for, does everybody's heart long for the same thing, or does it long for something different?
The short answer is simply absolutely. I believe when we're born that we are whole. And I believe that we are naturally, in the infant form, until some outside influences corrupt it. I believe that we are born feeling grateful. I believe we are born feeling joy. I believe we are born feeling love. I don't believe babies and infants can intellectualize that. I believe by the time we can, a lot of that we are born with is covered up with layers of distress and stress, and as we get older, it becomes learned and passed on from the people around us, from parents, from teachers, from mothers, from priests, from everybody in a sense. So I believe, to the extent that when people use the word born again, those that truly are, I believe it's because without external factors, you feel inside just the feeling of love, the feeling of gratitude, the feeling of joy, the feeling of curiosity, the feeling of want to serve, be of service. After that, as an adult, a lot of it just becomes ways and means, right? If you're not grateful for having the opportunity to do some kind of work, to earn a living, to pay for food and shelter, I think the tipping points in a lot of people's life is when they have children, because that's the moment where you kind of go, wow. And I remember saying to my son when his first daughter was born, that feeling you're having right now about that being, You want to learn how to keep that feeling inside of you for the rest of your life, no matter what. It will help you make better choices. It will help you through the tough times, the rough times. It won't solve all those problems. That takes knowledge in this human world and skill. So you have to practice. But I just want you to know that feeling that you have between you and that newborn baby is reciprocal. You are now sharing that feeling with a being that is untainted, right? So coming back to what do people, and this is interesting to me because wants and needs are two completely different things, right? And to your question of what do you it was your question, but I'll just play with it for a second. What do women want? Well, what do men want? What do kids want? What do ignorant people want? What do enlightened people want? Right? It's all different. But what I do believe is at the core of every human being, there is good. And good, even though whether they recognize what gratitude, the feeling of gratitude really means, or what the feeling of love really means, what the feeling of forgiveness really means, what the feeling of trust, truth, playful curiosity, peace, the feeling of peace when the world is at war, or you're at war with yourself. How do you find it? The way to connect to that, I think it's hard if you're in the needing therapy to get you through it, because when you get to that stage, you're layered up, right? And it's hard to crack through and find in the almost infinitesimal amount of things that could open the door or unlock the door. It's hard to know till that person gets to know you and surrenders their fear of that brings down their wall that they protect themselves with, because the darkness is protected by our egos, by our minds, right? So to find your way through that, I don't think it's any different for one person to another. I think whether it's male or female or adult or youth or faithful or faithless people, it varies so much. There may be a common thread. I think when people feel like they can trust somebody else enough to lower their guard and be open enough to have a conversation about what they're really thinking but not saying, because anytime you're talking to somebody else, you know there's a voice inside of you talking to you that's guiding you, that you've trained, or that's trained you, if it's through faith or enlightenment. But you don't know what the other person's training, I mean training through life's experience. And all I do know is the only way to connect to that is to be curious with people in a loving way and try to get to them to tell you what they love, what they feel grateful for, whether they're depressed or whether they're homeless or whether they're a disabled person in Africa. Because when people are willing and able to tell you what they trust in, what they believe in, or there may be nothing, but once people can tell you what they trust in, believe in, it usually starts off as things in some ways that they can feel are reliable or trustworthy. Sometimes it's people, but not often. Like somebody might say they trust their dog or their cat as their best friend. But once you can open that door, now you're having it takes trust to have that conversation. Some people would just say nothing. I'm a manic depressive. I don't, there isn't anything. And in which case you kind of you can't push that on that door too hard. So I think, yeah, look, of course there are mind, body, spirit, physical needs, emotional needs, faithful needs. But if people have forgotten the foundation of human life that you're born with, your heart beating and resonating with your brain over time, but your ears and your eyes are learning what the outside world is throwing at you. Your heart knows what it was born with, right? But it's when people say you've got to connect with your heart, think with your heart, it's the brain that verbalizes that in your head, not the heart. So you got to learn how to find that feeling in order to have a conversation in your own mind. So I honestly think it's all the same. I know some of the biggest resistance I've come across at times, saying it's okay for you're a guy. That's what guys need. And I'm not talking about what a guy needs. I'm talking about what humans need.
Right. So just context, for everybody, I was talking to Nora before, and the first time I think Peter and I talked, I think it was for 3 hours. I think the second time was 2.5 hours. I think the third time was 3.5 hours. So when Peter and I get together, it can go a long time. Peter, I think you're heading, overseas. So our thoughts and prayers are with you, with your parents, and those are precious times for sure. A number of years ago, I had that with my parents, and some of the fondest memories are some of those times. Nora, did you have any closing comments, thoughts, questions, anything at all?
I don't think so. I really appreciate you coming on, Peter. This has been great. So thank you.
You're welcome. And it sounds like you're in a genre I dip in and out of even still today. So if you ever have my phone number now. So if you ever have any questions or anything you want to chat about, now that I know you a bit, I'm more than happy for you to reach out if I can be of any use.
Nice.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And again, if you're listening to the rebroadcast of this, you have any questions, feel free to connect with the individual who invited you to participate in today's session. Or you can call toll free 888-230-2300 outside the US 630-393-9909. If you know of other thought leaders or interesting people, definitely, I don't know, somewhere on the page here on the podcast, you can submit something for, an interesting person. You say, hey, this person I know, has some interesting insights into friendships and connection and healing, all of those type of things, I think connect back into the friendship side. So definitely pass this along to them and submit that for other individuals to participate in this. I think, without question, we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Have an amazing day. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you. Bye-bye.